Oh, hi. I'm Shannon, and this is soxcetera, a knitting podcast. And, blue hairs don't care. You can find me on Ravelry as shannonfisher and Instagram as shannonmariah. And I'm not sure anything else matters. So it's not early, but it's earlier than I normally record because Steve and I have a bunch of errands to do today. So I got up early to do this so that I have like this tiny window right there. So any natural sunlight that I can get, I will take. So my hair is blue. Well, the tips are blue. The blonde bits are blue. I have been growing out my hair since August, and if I can't cut it, I can't dye it, I get so bored, and my hairdresser is, I don't know, she's due to do my hair right away here. But the other day I just was about to get in the shower. I was like, let's do this. So I've had pink hair before and black and every color under the rainbow, but I've never had blue. And the blue dye actually has been sitting in my cupboard for like 4 years. Longer than that, because we had it before we moved. It's a long time. So that's that. Well, now that that's out of the way, oh, I do say I'm a lot. Okay, so I'm going to start with acquisitions today. Acquisitions. Such a big word for such a little podcast. Because there is something that goes along with the acquisitions that I'm pretty excited about. So I will do them actually in the order that I got them. I got 3 project bags, and they all came this week. One on Monday, one on Tuesday, and one on Wednesday. So that was pretty exciting. It was an exciting mail week. I'm actually expecting some yarn, surprise, but it did not come. So this was my very first bag, and I actually took a picture of it and put it on Instagram. It's the only one of the 3 that I did, and I called it my first project bag, but it is not my first project bag. I realized this is my first project bag, which is really lovely, and it is made by Carol, and her company is Splityarn. I actually called it Splityarn for a long time until I met her. I had a conference in Boston, and her husband Boone let me stay with them, and they live in a church now. They bought a church, so you should probably follow her on Instagram and Boone, because they have like the most awesome pictures of their life. It's really cool. Anyways, so this is her bag. This is my very first project bag. So thanks, Carol. And I got the matching Notions bag to go with it. Isn't this fabric the best? I love it. She has really great fabrics. You should check out her store. And I'm keeping my Creative Memories blanket in it, which I will show in a minute. For foes. I will show it for foes, even though it's a hoe. That was for you, Sue. It's a hoe. So yeah, that was my very first project bag, and you should check out Carol's stuff. So this came on Monday, and it is a bag from Little Skein in the Big Wool, which isn't on Etsy, but they have, I think, maybe littleskein.com. On the screen. And so it's a drawstring bag, and I really am liking it. It's got these owls giving me the side eye, which I love. An owl with attitude, who can resist that? So this guy's, he's pretty happy. This guy's like, F-bomb you. No, he's asleep. This guy is swearing at me. And then, where's my side-eye guy? Oh, this guy. Yeah, this is what I said on Twitter, or Instagram. In my head, he's like, you call that knitting? Yeah, I do, little owl. I do. Have a cup of coffee. Take a nap. Do what you need to do. Actually, don't change, little owl. Don't change. I love you just the way you are. So I want to show you what's in there because that's part of my works in progress. So then the second one that came in the mail is this one. And it came with a little note. Oh, so this one is the only one I splurged on, as in it is from the States. Right now, the Canadian dollar, if you don't know, is in the tank. So something that costs 30 bucks in US dollars actually costs us little Canadians $42. So you add shipping to that and it's just not, it's not sustainable, you guys. So I'm really not buying anything from the United States right now, except for this little project bag. Because these owls, they needed me. Which is why, if any of you, I've commented on like your yarn or your project bags, and then I'm like, swoon, or I'm gonna go check out your shop, and then you never hear from me again, it's because I'm like, oh, you're from the States. Crummy, because that's, like I said, I just can't afford that. Which, yeah, that's my problem, not yours, but I love your stuff. I am really sincere when I comment on Instagram and say I love your stuff, and everything in me wants to buy it, but I need to save some money for yarn, right? So yeah, though this is the only one from the United States, the other two bags are Canadian, which I thought was pretty cool anyways. I love us Canadians. This is called, her shop is called knittypie, which, I mean, how can you not shop at a place called knittypie? And she is on Etsy. I actually did an Etsy search for project bags Canadian, and I don't think all of them came up, so that's something to consider. Take care of your metadata, you Canadian makers, because I found ones later that were Canadian that did not come up in my search. Anyways, woo, rambly. Okay, so this one is knittypie, and it's more of a medium size. I have 3 skeins of yarn in here. This is holding my tailwind shawl, which I've made a little progress on, but not tons. So this is a wedge bag. I think that's what you call it. It's got a bottom. I did turn the sides down and use it as a yarn basket, and that worked nicely. The other one doesn't hold itself up, so I also turned the sides down on that, and it didn't work as well as a yarn basket. I'm trying to avoid buying a yarnet, not because I hate them. I actually really like them. A lot of the women in my knitting group, Thursday knitting group, have them, and it's funny, there's this really hilarious divide of some people who are adamant never buy a yarnet, and because that is a ridiculous thing, and not ridiculous, but it's like expensive, and they're just sucking us in, and then the rest of the table is filled with yarnets. I'm just sort of like, I'd kind of rather spend my money on yarn, which, anyways, so I bought 3 project bags to try to use as yarn baskets, but I was going to buy project bags anyways. So some of them are working well as yarn baskets, others not as well. This one works. The owls do not, but that's okay. I still love the bag. And then the third one, which is maybe the most exciting one because it comes with something else, is from a shop called Knittersnook on Etsy, and she is local. She's right in my neighborhood, as in the suburbia of Vancouver, the greater Vancouver district, so not right in, I think she's in Surrey. So this is by, creations by Uli, or Yuli. You can correct me if I'm saying your name wrong. I want to say Uli, but it's U-L-I. And we had a really nice little chat on Etsy, and then now we're Instagram friends, and so this bag is really fun. This part feels quilted. It's quite cushy, and this stands up. This stands up more than the other drawstring bag, so it did work for me as a yarn bowl. Yarn basket? I was calling it a yarn basket. Yarn bowl? Whatever. I made a new word. And the exciting part about this one is Yuli sent, she sent stitch markers for my viewers, because I have viewers. So as a little giveaway. So she said these are not even in her shop yet, which is kind of fun. So they have a little, they're St. Patty's Day stitch markers. Got a little clover leaf, 4-leaf clover, that's what you call that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a giveaway on my Rav page. I will create a thread for that. So when you go there, all you need to do is join the group, and then go to Yuli's Etsy page, which is Knittersnook. Do a little browse. Tell me what else on her page that you love in the Ravelry thread, what you would buy if you were going to buy something next, why you love it, and leave a comment. And then I will, next week, you have to watch the show, because I'll do a draw for who wins these, and they will come in your choice of one of 2 other notions bags of Caro's that I bought. So a Splityarn notions bag. And this one is, I will be sad to part with it, but clearly I haven't used it since I bought it. When did I stay with you, Caro? It was like, was it 2 years ago? I'm gonna say 1.5 years. So this one's Robots. She uses the greatest fabric. And this second one, I think it's called Pickup Sticks or something like that. I love red so much. Red is like my favorite color. So these little stitch markers will come in one of these notions bags. So go to join the Rav group, head over to Yuli's Etsy page, do a little browse, come back to the Rav group, leave a comment about what you love in her shop, and then next week I will do a draw while recording, and you can get in touch with me, your address, and I will send you that delightful little package. It will be my first giveaway, you guys. So exciting. So thank you, Yuli. She is really dear as well, so you should follow her on Instagram if you want a great new friend. I got some SodaStream water with grapefruit bitters in it. I do hot drinks, but not a lot. They're not my favorite. I don't drink enough water. My go-to drink at Starbucks is a chai tea latte, so I guess I do hot drinks. That was probably the most fascinating bit of information that you're gonna get from me today. Okay, so acquisitions. Oh, actually I do have a few more acquisitions. I have new stash. So I'll start with these. I was at actually an art store. Emma was getting some new art supplies. She wants to try watercolor paints. So we were getting her some watercolor paints and other things. And in the middle of the art store was a yarn selection, and they had some Patons Croix. So I got this one in Singin' the Blues stripes, which I'm sure everyone has, and this one in blue striped rag. I got 2 of each so I can make, you know, 1 sock for each foot. So I'm excited about those. I've never used this yarn. And then my friend Pam walked by her local yarn store called Urban Yarns in West Van, and this is the second time this has happened. A couple years ago she walked by and saw a toque in the window and went in and said, I want that toque, but she doesn't knit. So she got all the yarn for it and then called me up and I knit it. And that's the Misky hat. It's on my Rav page. I feel like I showed it to you, or I wore it. Anyways, I knit her a Misky hat, and it is a really cool hat. It's a slouchy toque, but it's a little more fitted. So she walked by and saw a toque called Ombre Slouch, and it's a free pattern on Rav. So she got enough yarn for me to make 2. She says 1 for her and 1 for me. But the funny thing is she texted me and she said, can you make me a toque in time for me to go to Costa Rica? Yes, I can, Pam, but I'm pretty sure it's warm in Costa Rica. Not sure you're going to need a toque. But she said it's for bad hair days on the plane. Okay, fair. So these are the colors she wanted for her toque. So I think it's a Fair Isle pattern. It'll be my first Fair Isle. I didn't tell her that until she came with the yarn. So it's fallen apart a bit. This is Vista Mountaintop, and this is 50% superfine alpaca and 50% wool. Vista Mountaintop. I've never heard of this or knit with it, but I think the ladies at the shop just helped Pam pick out some things that would work for it. So this is fallen apart a bit, but that's these 2 nice brown shades. So in the pattern it's a dark on the bottom, and then you do the top with some Fair Isle bits. It's almost like pixelated. It's neat looking. I think it's going to turn out nice. So then she said this could be for me. She was a little bit vague. I don't know if she wanted a second toque or if this is really for me, so I'm gonna have to clarify on that. But this is Diamond, from the Diamond Luxury collection. Oh, I don't know if these had colorways. No, they're just numbered colors. And then this, so yeah, this is 100% Super Baby Alpaca. And I'm not seeing, oh yeah, these are also just numbered. That's so boring. So again, this would be, there, that's a little more accurate. This would be the bottom color and then the top for the pixelated bits. So I need to knit one of these. I need to knit a toque up out of this stuff by February 19th is, I believe, when she leaves for Costa Rica. You know, her Costa Rica hat, as one does. So we'll see how that goes. So those are my acquisitions. And now for my faux, which is actually a hoe. I was joking with someone on Instagram who told me that my blanket could technically be a hoe because it's a half-finished object. And I said, that's what Sue likes to call it on every time Chelsea on LegacyKnitz has a half-finished object. Chelsea tries to hold it up as, I can't remember, a finished object or a work in progress. And Sue's like, no, that's a hoe. And so I said, I'm pretty sure Sue just likes, her inner 12-year-old just likes to say hoe as much as humanly possible. So my blanket, which is in, did I say this one? No. in my split yarn. I almost said Splityarn. I just see that Y twice, I think. So so I realized something exciting this week. So I've only made 5 pairs of socks in my entire life. So I was thinking, and 2 of them are not fingering weight. These ones that happen to be in here because I was going to wear them today and meant to put them on before I started recording. These ones are a little bit thicker weight, and I made them with size 3 needles. So they won't even work for my blanket. But then I remembered, which I think I mentioned on one of my podcasts, that my friend Aoife sent me a huge Ziploc full of yarns. But I didn't realize they were fingering weight. So I went and looked on her project page for her blanket, and they are. So I have, this is just a part of what she sent me. I transferred a few that I thought I'd knit with next to a smaller baggie because I wanted to keep some in here just so if I was gonna, so if I was traveling with it, I'd just have a few to knit with. Anyways, so that's exciting. There's some really great fun yarns in here. Look at this one with all the different colors. So two of her colors are already in my blanket, which is now 5 squares. Yeah, so it starts, this will always be the bottom corner. I'm going to knit, so a lot of people are like making a row for how long they want it to be or how wide, and then they'll add on row by row by row. I don't want to do that because I want to be able to stop when I want to stop. So, you know, if you have a long skinny row of 52 squares, it's not really useful if you decide, I'm done with this project. And I know myself well enough to know that that could very well happen. So I will always knit around. I will always add squares, like one more here, one here, one here, one here, and then one in the corner. So I'll keep doing that, adding like that. So this will always be the bottom, one of the bottom corners. So I think you saw these 2, and then I added this one and this one. You would think these are different colors. They don't look like it, but I promise you they are. This is a cheater square because it's from my Tailwinds shawl that is not even done yet. So, oh, I'm showing you the wrong side again. But I just felt like it belonged in this spot. And I wasn't knitting with this color at the time. I was using the 2 other colors in the shawl, so I thought, it's serendipitous. So then this is from Aoife's bag of goodies, which I really love. It's like variegated purple, and it's got this, like, it's all purple, but some of it looks like gray. It's really cool. And then this pinky variegated stuff, which was really stiff it's really stiff, not a very squishy yarn, but I really like it, and if she made socks with it, they probably made really great socks. Yeah, so I guess one thing I'm wondering is, I don't know if you can see this, but here, these 2 squares just attached a lot more nicely than, say, this one did to this one. I don't know if you can see, it just looks sloppy along this edge, and this edge is so nice, as is this edge, and this edge turned out really nice too, but then this one looks sloppy. See how these all just look pulled. So I don't know if that will work itself out when, or if I block it. Maybe somebody can answer that question for me. But I am really liking it a lot. I stayed up till 1:30 last night working on this little bitty guy. So, and I can't remember who it was, but someone I was watching said they love to fold it. Like, me too. Mine is so ridiculously small that it's kind of funny to even love to fold it, but I do. So that is my faux slash hoe, if you will, which I love so far. I could get bored of it eventually. We're running errands. It's making me grumpy. I thought you should know. Oh, you're over there. Okay. I'm better now. This is Shannon from the future, who has recorded everything, gone and run some errands, and while I was running errands, I realized that one thing I wanted to say about my mini blanket is that because I've only knit, like I think I said earlier, 5 pairs of socks, and a couple of them weren't fingering yarn size, I don't have much to give in terms of doing a fingering weight yarn exchange. So what I'm wondering is if there's anyone out there who A, doesn't think they'll ever do a blanket and just would like their fingering weight yarn to have a home, or B, someone who is doing a blanket but still has a lot of extras that they've already put into their blanket, and would like that to have a home. I would love to be the home for that. And my promise to you would be to, 1, when I accumulate more yarn, to do an exchange, and to 2, pay it forward in that I will freely gift someone who's just starting out very generously the way you gifted me, with no expectation of exchange. Yeah, so I just thought no harm in asking, and if that's not you, then that's cool. If it is you, maybe get a hold of me on Instagram or Rav, PM me somehow, and we can chat about that. And we're back. Works in progress. It's time for a sip of water. Those grapefruit bitters are my fave. I actually have chocolate bitters too. Chocolate water sounds weird, but it's delicious. Okay, so I almost didn't bring these because I forgot that I didn't show them last time and was still working on them because I Instagrammed them. So once I Instagrammed them, I was like, done with those. But then I remembered, no, haven't showed them. And they're all stretched out right now because they were in my laundry basket. So I don't know if that's gross, but they're a bit covered in dog hair. But this is only one of, the other one's identical, guys. One of my worsted weight socks that I finally finished. Frogged twice, finished once. That's what I should have named these. I am sadly not in love with them. They're okay. I wished that I hadn't done increases for a slouchy leg bit. This is the cuff. What do you call this? Anyways, because they're just a little bit too slouchy, maybe. Maybe a wash will fix that, but anyways, I'll still wear them and love them. I did a slip stitch heel, which doesn't show up very well on here, but I did. I don't think I've ever told you the general recipe for my socks, but I always do toe up, 2 at a time toe up. That's not true. These socks I did 1 at a time toe up. because I think my 3-inch circular needle is only 32 inches, and so it just doesn't have enough length to do 2 at a time. Plus I wanted to see how I felt about 1 at a time, and I don't love it because when you're done, you still have another to do. So yes, I do 2 at a time toe up, magic loop, circular needles. I cast on like 1/3 of the stitches with the Turkish cast on, which feels like witchcraft, frankly. The fact that you can just literally wrap the yarn around the needles like, I'm knitting. And then you have a cast on. That is crazy. It is witchcraft. And then I actually recently started, so I used to increase every other row, and I do knit front to back because I hate make ones, especially in that beginning fumbly stage when needles are everywhere, everything's tiny, you're not having much bulk to work with. It just feels super picky and tight, and I don't like it. So I do knit front to back every other row until I have as many stitches on the needle as I want. But Andy from, what's her podcast name? It'll be there. She does so she starts off increasing the first 2 rows back to back because she says it makes a bit of a rounder toe. So I've been doing that, and I actually don't remember what my toes used to look like before I was doing it, so, but I don't hate it, so I've continued to do it. And then I knit until I'm supposed to for whatever heel I do, which I'm still loving the Flegel heel, and I have a pair of socks on the needles right now, and I'm sort of toying with the idea of doing a fish lips kiss for those pair, but I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna do the Flegel heel. So then I do that, and then I kind of like, it changes. Sometimes I'm like, these socks are going to be short because I am sick of this yarn. And sometimes, like with these, I'm like, I never want to see this yarn again, so I'm going to use it all up. And this is all I have left of that yarn. This is what happens when you frog as you go. Maybe little ear warmers? Yeah. Or vagina cozies. One for you, one for your BFF. What? I really never want to see this yarn again. What were we talking about? Why did I show you my socks? What's next? Okay, I'll show you my socks, which I showed you last time and said I was going to rip them out and do a contrasting heel. Guess what? I didn't lie. I did it. I ripped them out, and I added a white toe. So this is Regia, just white, and then this is a Knit Picks. And it's reminding me of a college sweater or something, the way it's turning out. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do a white heel and a white cuff. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with these. I didn't knit a lot this week. I worked a lot this week. If you could see my desk, it is covered in receipts right now because I'm trying to get all of our books in order so that we can get our tax return done early, because we have something in the works that maybe I'll talk about next time. So yeah, I'm not in love with these, but I like them. But I also tried them on. They're a bit loose, and there's like, these are size 2 Chiagu, how do you say it? Size 2 US needles, and I did 32 stitches on each side, so that's pretty standard, but they feel loose on my foot. So I don't know, maybe I need to go down a needle for my future socks. Or maybe I'll just be wearing loose socks my whole life. To be decided. So yeah, my little owls with attitude are taking care of those socks for me. That little project. It's so fun to have project bags. And then the next work in progress. Oh no, this has my sweater in it. Didn't touch it. So yeah, I think the only other thing I have to show you. So Pam's, I am counting it as a work in progress. I will hopefully get that toque on the needles tomorrow. And then my tailwind shawl. The only time I worked on it was on Thursday night with my knitting group. So I think all I only got a few more stripes added here. So it's really not much bigger than last time I showed you, sadly, because I'm so excited about wearing it. I think I'm gonna love it. So yeah, I think I have one more because you add a line of stripes every time, and I think this one has 7, so this one needs 8. And then I'll do the Vancouver gray chunk, etc, etc. Soxcetera, soxcetera. So that's exciting. I am someday hoping to get a large project bag because I think that sweater will outgrow that sock bag if I actually knit it. So those are my works in progress. So the next thing, I have my notes here, that's what I'm looking at. The next thing I would like to talk about is, I'm calling it Pod Love, Podcast Love. So let's see. I am going to start with Brittany from SpunCast. This is podcast love and a thank you, because she gave me the most amazing, lovely, kind, squee-worthy shout out on her podcast. I had never actually watched her, not because she's not fabulous, but because I'm still in the works of finding all of the great podcasters. So I'm glad she tagged me on Rav to let me know she had mentioned me in her podcast. I actually didn't realize she had mentioned me in her podcast. She just had podcast love. And I was like, oh, so I thought she was talking in someone else's Rav group, just like, hey, here's some podcasts I love. So I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I went back and I was like, wait a second. So then I went and watched the podcast that was embedded above it. And I was like, it's her. And so then I started watching it. And I was like, she's talking about me. So that was a pretty fabulous surprise. And she talked about me for like 2 whole minutes. She knows a lot about me. She's read lots of my writing, and she knew that I RV'd with my family, or that I RV with my family. She knew, I think she knew that I live in Vancouver. She knows Canadian. Maybe I think she said I live in Alberta. Totally fine. She said I was a new knitter. I've been knitting for like 14 years, but after I got over my initial, I'm not a new knitter, Brittany, I'm not new, I was like, well, you kind of are, Shan, because you were stagnant there for quite some time. I think the most I grew was teaching myself how to knit in the round. And then I just made toques for like 10 years and very seasonally. So I'm kind of new, I guess. So yeah, Brittany, her podcast is great, and she has a store, which I did check out, but currently it is completely, oh yes, okay. So she does sell yarn. I don't think she sells project bags. But then I was on her store and I found, or maybe I was on her Instagram, maybe her store doesn't have any right now, but I was on her Instagram and she had little lavender sachets. Side note, I have a funny story. My knitting group liked this, so I thought maybe you would. So I used to teach French immersion students. I taught French immersion kids. We spoke French together all day long. I taught them how to pronounce all of the different letter combinations. Grade 2s and 3s. We sung songs about how to pronounce words. Well, I used to pronounce potpourri. I used to call it potpourri. Yep, that's the truth. Until one day Steve's like, "What did you just say?" I'm like, "That potpourri. I like the smell of that potpourri." No, Shannon. No, you do not. And then this is even more embarrassing because this is like 5 days ago recent. I was watching another podcast. I think it was Homespun House with Molly. She was talking about, I think she'd pulled out an old project bag and the yarn smelled good because she had a lavender sachet inside. And I was like, sachet? Yes, I have been calling them sachets my entire life. So again, sachet, a good French word, clearly that it's pronounced that way. And I had been calling them sachets up until 5 days ago. So anyways, Brittany from SpunCast shop and podcast will sell lavender sachets in her shop, which I was super excited about because now that I have project bags, I would like to have some for my project bags. But then I sadly realized that, oh, it's US dollars, so I'm just gonna have to drool over those for a little bit longer until I can't handle it anymore. So let me just finish talking about Brittany. So yes, thank you, Brittany, and I watched your podcast and I loved it, and I will definitely be back, and you are a kindred spirit. She also sent me a really nice message on Ravelry saying she really liked my writing, shared a short story with me, which I haven't read yet, and just said some really lovely things. So I feel like we're kindred spirits, and I think we're on our way to BFFdom, personally. So yeah, so that's Brittany. Before I talk about the next podcaster, I just want to say that Americans, listen, you need to come to Knit City because the state of our American dollar is to your benefit. So you know how I said yarn that costs 30 bucks? A skein of yarn that costs 30 bucks is actually 42 bucks for me when it's in US dollars. Well, if you come to Canada and you see a skein of yarn that's $30, guess how much it's going to cost you? Just over 21. Yeah, think about the savings. You gotta come. You gotta come and meet me at Knit City. I'll be there. 4 o'clock. I don't know what time it's at. Okay, so the next podcast, love, goes out to Pinfeathers Purls. And her name is completely escaping me right now. Someone else I watch mentioned her. So every time I'm knitting and watching a podcast and they mention another podcaster, I'm like, that's one I haven't heard of. Go and look it up. Because I'm really enjoying doing that while I knit. So, what is her name? She is lovely. You should also follow her on Instagram. She is from my hometown, Calgary. I was born and raised in Calgary. Lived there until I was... When did Steve and I move to... So we moved to Edmonton, and then we moved to back to Calgary, and then we moved to Central Alberta. Anyways, Calgary, love it. So Pinfeathers Purls is a Calgary podcaster, and she is newish like me. I think she has a few more episodes. And she has a bird named Yoshi, which I thought was funny because some of the very first people we met here have a bird named Yoshi. Yeah, I don't know a ton about her, but I know I really enjoyed watching her. So you should check her out. And then, so the next thing is thank yous. So, Brittany, thank you again. Then I would like to, 2 weeks ago, not this recent podcast, but the 2 weeks ago podcast, I think, the Very Bad No Good podcast by LegacyKnitz, they mentioned me, and they said some really nice things about me, so thank you, Sue and Chelsea. I adore you madly. And then Yarn Geek is another new podcast, and she gave me a shout out on her podcast, so thank you for that. Oh, I forgot to tell you that Brittany called me a sassy badass. I'm gonna put that on my business cards probably. A general thanks to everyone leaving comments on YouTube and Instagram, telling me that they're enjoying what I'm doing and me, and it's just really fun, and I don't know, it makes me feel like part of the community and like this is worth it. And especially last time when I shared a bit about my journey with depression and anxiety, I had a few of you reach out to me just to say thanks for talking about it so openly, and that's really important to me that happens in my life, because I know that the shame of living with depression and anxiety can be suffocating. So my way of fighting the shame is to talk about it, because I feel like when you talk about stuff, you get it out from those dark places. It comes out, and it's just not as, it just can't fester the way it can in secret. So yeah, so thanks for showing up for the 4th time. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to have you along with me. And then the last thing is my 2 shan things. I have 2 things listed that I just don't even feel like are that interesting right now. So what can I tell you instead? So the first thing is that I used to hate pink. I've seen a lot of podcasters who will talk about pink yarn or pink things, and they're like, not really my thing. And I'm like, I totally get that, because I used to hate pink. I did not want to be associated with it. And for me, my personal reason, I'm not saying this is why anyone else does not like pink, but I knew it. My reason for not liking pink was because I felt like anything, well, it's not that I felt like, it's true. We're socialized to believe that anything girly is less than. So chick flicks, chick lit, pink, makeup, you know, it's not really respected by society. To be girly was an insult. To be high maintenance meant that you took time to put on makeup and look nice, which, I mean, women have so much pressure to be the ideal, but then we get criticized when we try to be the ideal. So we can't win. But I did not want to be associated with anything girly, because I thought it just made me look weak and seem weak. And so pink. And then when I had Emma, pink was everywhere. And I just thought, I actually think I really like pink. I just don't want to like it. I don't want anyone to know I like it. So I started to embrace pink. And now I love pink. Oh, I love pink. I have a ton of pink things. So yeah, you can see why I had listed that. And then I'm like, who cares? We'll see. And then the second thing is that I got my Bachelor of Education in 2004, and Emma was 2 when I graduated, which means, well, she wasn't quite 2. Her birthday's in September, so I graduated in May, so she was like 4 months shy of 2, which means that I did my last 2 years of education with a baby. So what happened was, she was a surprise. Steve and I had actually decided not to have children. When I met him, I told him I wanted 4 kids. I don't think I actually did. It just sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like something I should want. And Steve was like, well, 2 is a responsible number. Which is a really funny response. But that is exactly what he said, which made me believe he also wanted kids, and then found out later he didn't want kids. Which was, we had a little bit of a fight over that. So I think a couple months before we found out I was pregnant, we'd sort of had another conversation about maybe we do want kids. Because eventually Steve, in the process of him giving me all his reasons for not wanting kids, I was like, actually, that is pretty appealing. So I came around to not wanting kids either. And then Steve started to change a bit, and he was like, oh, maybe I do want kids. So we just sort of had that discussion. Found out I was pregnant. I had already applied to be in this final 2-year program with my cohort to get my Bachelor of Education. Found out we were pregnant, got an acceptance letter in the mail like a week later, sat in the car and bawled because I was due to start when Emma was due. And so yeah, when we found out I was pregnant, Steve was really excited. I was slower to come around. I was like, I don't know about this. Emma, if you're watching, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Ever. It was just a normal human reaction. So yeah, I sat in the car and I opened the letter and I bawled because I thought, I finally decided to go back to school and I get accepted into this program that I worked my butt off for, and now I can't go. And then Steve was like, why can't you go? And I was like, babies, stuff, reasons. So I started to think about it. So I took that whole time, like right up until class started, was I deciding, am I gonna do this? So I went, and I showed up with my big pregnant belly because I was due in like 7 days. And there was some older people in my cohort, and one of the women was like 42, and she had 2 grown boys, I think, and her and we got put in a group together to do our very first project together. And she looked at my belly and she went, what are you doing? You're not going to be able to do this. And the other girl, who was younger than I was, looked at Patty and was like, how dare you say that to her? And I was I wasn't offended. I was like, you know, sometimes my thinking doesn't stay in my head either. But I was a little bit like, probably didn't need to say that to me. But looking back, if I was Patty, I would have said the exact same thing to me, because it was crazy. It was a, so I went to school for a week, had Emma, took a week off, went back to classes, and it was a really rough go. Of course, babies barely sleep and interrupt your sleep all the time, and so Steve was trying to take the feeding shifts on the days that I had class, and then on the days that I didn't, I was taking them, and we were a freaking mess. We were just a mess. I was escaping to the bathroom during breaks to pump breast milk. Like, it was a lot of work. So in retrospect, I would have never done that, but I thought, I've come this far, I don't want to give it up. And part of me is really glad I did it because I proved to myself that I could. I proved to myself that I'm university material. I never thought I was when I graduated. I graduated by the skin of my teeth. I thought I was not very smart. So I was never going to go back to school. When Steve met me, I planned to be a secretary for the rest of my life. Obviously, like 3 years into that, I was like, ooh, I do not want to do this forever. So Steve convinced me to go back to school. So, you know, all that work to like get to that point, and I just didn't want to give it up. And I think it's great that I did it. I don't, I'm not gonna say I don't regret it. I think if I had different tools and I think I did it out of fear. I think I did it out of fear that not finishing meant I was a quitter. Not finishing meant that I wasn't university material. I was afraid that I would never go back and finish it. So I'd never get a teaching degree and never be a teacher and be stuck in jobs I didn't want to do forever. So I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I taught for 9 years. I loved every little soul that I came across. I quit because the politics of it, not because of the little humans. I love those gaffers. So yeah, I got my Bachelor of Education with a baby. So I have a picture of her and I. Maybe I'll try to find it and insert it here. A picture of Emma and I with me in my cap and gown, because I really wanted her in a picture because she just felt like so much a part of it. Yeah, I felt it was Steve's degree and Emma's degree as much as it was my degree. So yeah, that's my little 2 Shan things. So thanks for joining me this week. And I think all of you are super lovely. So I'm going to sign off with big love and squishy hugs. Gabby from Once Upon a Corgi. She DM'd me on Instagram. She's like, squishy hugs. It sounds gross, but I kind of love it. And I was like, it does sound kind of gross. But, you know, like our yarn is squishy. Just a squishy hug. Some big love and squishy hugs. Bye, guys.